Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. Uh, Many of us enjoyed together a day of mindfulness with Blue Cliff Monastics yesterday here. I'm still feeling the happy resonance of being together in a practice community with the monastic community. So I chose to use this microphone because I knew I was going to get up right away. I want to talk about today I want to talk about bodhisattvas. But I want to start by sharing about a concept in Buddhist practice about three realms of action, three actions. There's the action of our physical body. That's a pretty obvious one. That's very often what in normal daily life we talk about in terms of action. There's also the action of our communication, our way of speaking and listening with each other. It also involves the body, but there's an activity which is more subtle in the realm of communication. It's not just particles of matter interacting. There's other layers of our being that are interacting in the way we speak and listen to each other. And so although it involves the material world, it's more than that. And so that idea of speech, communication as action is referring not so much to the sound, but the meaning in the sound and that level of action. And then there's a realm of action of the mind, which for most of us it seems like it just happens inside our own head, our thoughts, right? But it's also a way of contributing to the experience of life in the world. And so there's just this is a simple idea here. I have no idea if I'm going to get this right, but okay, I think that was pretty good. So we take three little circles and we overlap them like that. And we can say, the classic way of saying it in the Plum Village circles is body, speech, and mind. These three realms. body, speech, and mind. And you can draw them like this, as little circles overlapping, and it reminds us that sometimes our action is like we're focused on it in terms of our body, or our communicating, or our mind, but maybe they have something to do with each other. Our body and our mind, maybe our body and our words and listening have something to do with each other. Maybe our words and our mind, yeah, very much, huh? It's like inner speech and outer speech have something to do with each other. I often rehearse here what I'm going to say there, right? So they very much have something to do with each other. But then there's this place where they all overlap, which is really cool. Body, speech, and mind in perfect oneness. I send my heart along with the sound of the bell. And that's what that's referring to. Where I bring my mind and my heart, this realm of connecting, and my body all together. And I have a kind of a oneness of the three actions as one action. And sometimes you hear that expression in Buddhism, one action. In fact, our teacher's name is one action, Nyat-Han. Tek Nyat-Han, Nyat-Han, one action. And sometimes we are able in our practice to unify our body, our speech, and our mind. All the layers of our activity become one, becomes very powerful. So that the physical expression of our action in the world and our deeper intentions and thoughts and the way in which we express them with each other are all coming together. There's another image that I've imagined also. Let me see if I can do this with a little more artistry. Kind of. Okay. There's a sitting meditator.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. I didn't make it quite right, but you can also see the three actions here. And in the mind and the heart, the communication and the body imagined here. And if you can really bring them together, right? If we can bring them together, every moment of our life is a moment of action, right? And the moment when that happens is a very powerful moment, not only for us, but for the world too. I draw that line down through the middle of it. And in me right now, there's a cosmic image of that too. For this season, the autumn time, it's one of letting go of all of this busyness and flourishing of the summer and really coming home deeply to ourselves, just like the plants, the trees are doing around us, right? Releasing that outer growth and all that life energy descending down the trunk into the roots, deep into the soil, and that coming inwards. And there's these the beginning of that process in autumn happens when the earth passes through the debris in the asteroid belt, and we get the Perseid meteor showers, which are like little meteors of mindfulness hitting the atmosphere and changing the chemical constitution of our biosphere, right? It just dropping down. And when I imagine that, right, I feel that alignment happening right away. So my mind coming into alignment with this experience, this action of the earth right now, at least in the northern hemisphere, right, where we are, right, this activity that is collective that we're in the midst of is that dropping in and that alignment. I just sat down. So the bodhisattva is, let's start with the word. The word itself has two words in it, bodhi and sattva. And sattva is being, a being like you or I, or a being. And bodhi means enlightening or awakening. In this context, you can take it as a noun or a verb, or right, but it's awakened, awakening, enlightened, enlightening being. So I feel like I should write that on the board, but it's simple enough, isn't it? Okay. So the bodhisattva, in terms of Buddhism's older traditions and the culture and society that Buddhism was emerging in, nowadays define this in a particular way. So an awakening being is a being that is going to attain Buddhahood in a future life and has that kind of promised for and to them. This being will attain a full awakening, the Buddhahood. The Buddha that comes from the same word, bodhi, right? Same root. To attain that full awakening at a future life. And then the older traditions of Buddhism, that's how it is viewed. With that comes an understanding, a cosmological understanding of us as human beings going through, not just human beings, but living beings going through many, many dozens or hundreds of lives, and reborn and reborn and reborn again, and progressing along bit by bit, and at a certain point becoming a bodhisattva, and then at a certain point awakening as a Buddha. And that is the picture presented in the Theravadan perspective. And you also have the picture of the Mahayana schools of Buddhism, which is a little bit different in the sense of sometime in a future life awakening as a Buddha. The Bodhisattva is seen in the sense of with less attainment over time and more immediate present moment expression of the awakening. So in the Mahayana perspective, to express a kind of a great virtue of awakening in the here and in the now is in a manifestation of the Bodhisattva. In this picture of action, body, speech, and mind, we see the possibility of manifesting awakening. We also see the possibility of manifesting ignorance, right? This is the difference, right? And this perspective of Mahayana Buddhism opens the door for us to examine that right here and right now, not as a hope in the distant future, but right here and right now. How can, right? And it's also in the Theravadan perspective too. How do I cultivate right here and right now this possibility of awakening rather than continuing with the ignorance? And we all have dimensions of ourselves in our minds, in our hearts, in our bodies, where there's a lot of ignorance and suffering, where we don't fully understand what's going on. And we're just running on habit energy, right? Someone says something, we get ticked off, and we express anger, and it just happens. And it seems like it happens to us. And in Buddhism, we call that an affliction. Klesha is an affliction, something that you feel is happening to you that you don't understand clearly, as if there's a cloud or a veil between you and the truth of that. You don't see it, right? And we all have aspects of ourselves that have a lot of ignorance and suffering, and sometimes the action of our daily lives is full of that. And then there's the possibility that we kind of come here into the middle, or we draw ourselves into a kind of integrity, a kind of a unity of experience. We hold something precious, we hold something sacred, we hold something dear, and we allow that to be expressed in our actions. And this is like the wholesome path, really. It's, I understand something beautiful is possible, so I will hold that and do my best to express that in the way that I'm thinking, in the way that I'm speaking, in the way that I'm moving through the world, and the choices I'm making. And you see that emergence of this possibility that I can express myself in an unwholesome way in the world, or I can express it in a wholesome way in the world. And again, this is not like a qualification of good or evil. It's simply observing that certain kinds of actions take us in one direction and certain kinds of actions take us in another. But what is that holding that allows us, right, to take it, right? This is awareness. This is mindfulness. This is being able to come home in awareness to this moment. It's another part of us. That's why I kind of like this image of the three circles, because it puts it right in the middle. It's like a high sense of me or self, in the sense of I take hold of. I can take hold of the idea that, I need a particular degree in order to make a certain amount of money, and I can kind of say that that's like my identity, and that's me, and that's what I'm investing myself in. Or I can take a hold of an idea like being kind or patient, and allow that to express itself, right, in my actions. And this is the idea here as far as the Mahayana understanding of bringing awakening into the world. We're kind of letting ourselves become vessels through which virtue can manifest. We're choosing that and holding that space so that virtue can express itself, so that something beautiful can reveal itself. Let's do this as a little exercise. I like this with the contrast of the cool air. I know we're going to generate some inner warmth. Um, right here, now. I breathe in and I breathe out, and I bring my awareness to in-breath and out-breath. And just as the air enters my body and settles in, and the air flows out of my body and re-emerges and reintegrates with the world around me, I bring in that little spark of wisdom and I hold it tender. That's that awareness that all of the cosmos is entering into me, becoming a part of me, and releasing out. All the generations who have come before, mothers, fathers, grandmothers, grandfathers, all are reaching, exploding into this moment, manifesting right here, right now in the experience I am having. In breath and out breath. So many amazing people and teachers with insight and wisdom and great hearts of compassion, transmitted generation to generation, my spiritual family. I breathe in, and they explode into this moment in me. It's like I am so full of all of my spiritual ancestors, and they settle into this moment with that out breath. All the living beings whose lives have become earth and water and air and animals and plants that nourish and come together, and the sun and the turning of the planet and the seasons, and the whole cosmos streams into this moment, bringing it just like it is, right here, right now. And if the whole cosmos is coming together across time and space to bring this experience of life to me, this deep sense of interbeing and interconnection, of sharing life with all. My mind may want to jump somewhere, but deep inside, I know this is enough. It is already so full. It is already complete. Where else would you want to go if the whole cosmos is coming together to offer you this moment? Oh, our Mother Earth and the cosmos is saying, dear child, please don't run. I've got you right here in my arms. Settle in. Soften, open. Trust in me. the sound of a bell? Okay, now come back. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Come back, come back. This is part of the experience. Draw yourself right back here. Maybe wiggle your toes. Right? Don't tell me you didn't go anywhere. Right? So what happened? What happened? We become a vessel. We become a conduit for something else to manifest. And that manifestation was me just using simple words to describe the insight of interbeing. And to use that wisdom, that insight, that clarity around we are not just ourselves, we are also our mothers, fathers, and many generations. We are our teachers and our spiritual traditions. We are the earth and all the beings of it. And those insights, the mind, right? And the communication of that meaning through, and suddenly we manifest an experience of deep connection, of deep peace, of really belonging to. And your heart starts to open. You start to feel that. And maybe the mind is, want to acknowledge that. Maybe the mind fights against it a little bit. It's busy. The mind does like to try to figure things out. It doesn't like to let go. Right? And that's its habit energy. But you feel that growing. And then when the bell's invited, and it's like, okay, come back. See, now we're in a different space. But we were for a moment open as vessels to allow something to come into the world. Yeah. I would like to paint a different picture, a slightly bigger picture. We don't have to close our eyes for this one. So there's this chant that we do in Plum Village that's about one of the bodhisattvas. It's called From the Depths of Understanding. And the text is like this. Let's see if I can remember it without chanting it. From the depths of understanding, a flower of great eloquence blooms. And the bodhisattva, this is the bodhisattva of great compassion. The bodhisattva stands majestically upon the waves of birth and death, free from all affliction. Her great compassion eliminates the suffering of sickness, even if you think it's uncurable. Can alleviate the suffering of it. Doesn't mean it's not the end of sickness, but alleviate the suffering of sickness. Her wondrous light sweeps away all obstacles and dangers. A willow branch in her hand, once waved, reveals countless Buddha lands. Her lotus flower, when it blossoms, becomes a multitude of practice centers. You hear that progression of things there. Now I want you to imagine the 1950s and 60s in Vietnam, when there's a tremendous amount of suffering, a kind of sickness of war and violence, and watch that evolve as Thai Thich Nhat Hanh emerges into the Western countries calling for peace as a young monk and activist, and then the development of the practice centers of the Plum Village community all over the world, culminating in events like what we had yesterday here with 8 monastics from Blue Cliff coming to share about their life and their practice. And I see right there the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara manifesting into the world. Right? Where it's not just me or you doing it, but it's many hundreds and thousands of people who, through their practice, allow great understanding and compassion to manifest in the world. and the deep connection and communication that starts to happen in the world. And in this way, I'm trying to connect for us as analytical, Western, supposedly intelligent peoples, right? Some of the old ways of experiencing the bodhisattvas, where they are spiritual entities, they are spiritual beings, right? And they are venerated and worshipped, and devotion is offered towards them, right? They are seen as spiritual beings. It's hard for the Western mind to grab that because it's not something we can like touch and measure with our scientific instruments and ideas. But what I was just describing to me is that, right? A spiritual being is a spiritual being, not necessarily a material being, and yet, just like the mind is a representative of our spiritual dimension, right? Through the way that we carry it in our speech and our action, right? Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara begins to reveal herself in the world. She doesn't look like a human being because she's not a human being, right? She, they. That's meant to be indifferent. Sorry, I have a habit energy from the chant, right? But it's an expression of this deep spiritual virtue that really is experienced as alive in the world. When we practice together as groups of people, we amplify and we increase the vibration of our practice. So it's a little bit exponential, not so much like 1 + 1 = 2. It's kind of like 1 + 1 + 1 = 20, something like that. It's like you have this amplification of the experience when we come together and we practice, and then you really see the transformation, and you really experience the power of the virtue. So most bodhisattvas are imagined as these beings, spiritual entities that carry a particular characteristic or virtue or skill, and they express that beautifully, and that is their means of revealing themselves. So you say like it's in this way of seeing things, as I've been trying to describe it, it's not so much as I did something kind today, right? It's more on the level of I can see that kindness lives in the world, right? You are such a compassionate person, right? That's like grabbing it and putting it on somebody, right? You're such a compassionate person, which is a wonderful thing to say, right? Or can we also say, compassion is revealing herself in the world, right? And it's another way. It's just another way of perceiving here, and this is the energy, the capacity of the bodhisattva, right, expressed in the world. And the bodhisattvas, they don't just represent any old thing. They are actually structural. They actually are the path. That's the cool part, right? And that's kind of what I'm trying to say. It's not like it's your compassion, right? Can you honestly say that when you do something compassionate, it's your compassion, right? No. Compassion is manifesting in the world. Somehow I have been fortunate enough to have the conditions to learn how to do that, right? And these are structural aspects of the path of awakening. like the actual substance of the path. And they also indicate, because of that, that we have a tendency inside for this, right? That deep in us, the structure is there. I know nowadays we talk about, the negativity bias and how most of us are inclined by habit energy to suffer more than we are to be happy, or to pay attention at least to suffering more than we do our happiness, because we take it very seriously. It might be considered a threat or a danger to us. And then it becomes a habit energy to always look at ourselves and look at each other with that critical, negative, suffering mind. But there's also something else in us, which is a print, kind of a blueprint, if you will, a design in us for awakening, for a wholesome way to be good, to be beautiful, to be true. Yeah. It's in there also. And the Bodhisattva, right, is that. That is the Bodhisattva. And we allow the Bodhisattvas to manifest in the world, to be this bright spiritual force, this awakening in the world, by the way that we go about our daily lives. Body, speech, and mind. Oh, I want that'll look funny, but I'm going to do it. Okay. Oops. Okay, now I can write more. So there are 3 bodhisattvas that carry this very general structural design for us. And they correspond actually to the 3 actions. And the first is named Manjushri, great understanding. And then you have Avalokiteshvara. Known as the Bodhisattva of great compassion. The name Avalokiteshvara actually means the one who hears the sounds of the world and has the capacity to do that, right? You can be so present that you can receive whatever is there. And that image from the chant, riding on the waves of birth and death, free from all affliction. That I like to say that Avalokiteshvara is a good surfer, right? And can navigate the ups and the downs without being overwhelmed, right? And sometimes is like seated on an amazing lotus throne that's held up by like monstrous creatures and dragons and such, like symbolizing that this is okay. Right? I can handle this. And then you have Samanta, that's an N. Bhadra, great action. And these are 3 of the sort of structural, if you will, bodhisattvas because they're the energies of bringing the wholesome path into the way that we understand things, the way that we communicate and connect the realm of the heart, and our action, our skillful means in the world. Samantha Bhadra is sometimes called goodness or virtue, but also skillfulness. Excellent, excellence, excellence. And then in the Plum Village tradition, we emphasize, there's three others I wanted to bring out in this talk just to express. There's actually hundreds and hundreds of different bodhisattvas. Oh, this is fun. Yeah, let me just do this real quick. They have the coolest names. I took some pictures of some pages from the Avatamsaka Sutra this morning so I could read these. Okay. Bodhisattva, what is so and what is not? Bodhisattva, great light. Bodhisattva, eternal light. Bodhisattva, mind king. Bodhisattva, one practice. Bodhisattva, always manifesting spiritual powers. Bodhisattva, sprout of wisdom. Bodhisattva, most serene. Bodhisattva, illuminating the world. Bodhisattva, lamp of truth. Bodhisattva, sustaining the world. There's so many. Okay. Indestructible knowledge. Knowledge of meanings and expressions. Bodhisattva, eternally equanimous knowledge. Bodhisattva, dragon knowledge. Bodhisattva, well-tuned knowledge. Bodhisattva, immensely powerful knowledge. Bodhisattva, inconceivable knowledge. But that's really cool. There's so many. Knowledge of universal service, Bodhisattva. Oh, and then we have the Matrix Bodhisattvas, and not from the movie. The Matrix of Lotus-like Splendor, Bodhisattva. The Solar Matrix, Bodhisattva. The Earth Matrix, Bodhisattva. The Matrix of Lunar Purity, Bodhisattva. The Matrix of Manifestation of all arrays of adornments, Bodhisattva. The Matrix of Blue Lotus Splendor. The Matrix of Celestial Quality. Yeah. The Matrix of Radiance of Great Webs of Light Beams, Bodhisattva. Yeah. So it goes on and on and on. And of course you'll notice that all of it is an expression of like the path of awakening in one dimension or another, some very spiritual, very deep, and some very practical and very easy to connect with, like these three. And then we have Sadaparibhuta Bodhisattva. Sadaparibhuta Bodhisattva is never disparaging. this is the bodhisattva that always sees each being that they meet as a Buddha to be, and has confidence in them regardless of how they're manifesting. Has confidence that this person, no matter how much I perceive them to be lost in suffering or causing harm in the world, they have in them the possibility of awakening, an awakening to be a kind and wonderful being, right? I like to think of this often when I get ticked off at people or frustrated with behaviors of people, to try to remember Sadaparibhuta. Can I allow Sadaparibhuta Bodhisattva to be expressed in the world right now, rather than my habit energy of closing down with judgment and condemnation? And maybe I need Sadaparibhuta to open my heart, and then I need Samantabhadra to help me with skillful action. Right? And then there's Ksitigarbha. Ksitigarbha is the bodhisattva of the strength of the earth, the strength, the stability, the perseverance of the earth. And it's the kind of motivation you might have to go into a very difficult place and bring relief. And we have that vow, the strong aspiration in Ksitigarbha to show up even in the midst of a hell realm of suffering, and not to avoid, right, the difficulty, at least not to avoid it for selfish reasons. We might have to avoid it for skillful means from time to time, so that we are not overwhelmed or hurt by. But the Bodhisattva Ksitigarbha is that great vow and aspiration to show up in the painful moment when we have the capacity, and like the earth, to maintain that capacity. Right? Think about the way the regenerative life capacity of the forest, right? And even as things die and fall away, there's a whole way in which it's absorbed and transformed, and the decay and the death is the very substance out of which the life and the flourishing emerges, right? It's not different. And Ksitigarbha points us in that direction, to find that kind of stability, that kind of perseverance. The last one, which is important in the Plum Village practice circles, I shouldn't say the last one, the one that's commonly is Maitreya. And Maitreya, the word Maitreya comes from the word for friend, friendship. In most modern meditation circles, this word gets translated as loving kindness. It actually comes from the root of friendship and friend. And this is important in Plum Village, and it's something that is really expressed in Plum Village as, well, we can say, I will put here friendship, but also love, and I will put Sangha. One of the things that is very much expressed in the Plum Village practice is taking care of each other as spiritual friends, building community, Sangha. And Maitreya, Tai used to say, Maitreya as a bodhisattva, right? A bodhisattva who will be born as a Buddha, right? That's like Maitreya is the Buddha to be born, is often how it's expressed. But he would say the Buddha of the future is a sangha. It's not an individual. It's a community. It's a collective. And Maitreya is that manifestation. I would like just to say a couple of things about the way I sometimes hold this um, in a more traditional sense, where there's a kind of a personification of a bodhisattva too. I feel myself drawn to that sometimes because I think because I experienced being close to Thich Nhat Hanh, and this experience of him as an individual, as a human being, but not. Right? There's something moving through him as a human being. This is very powerful. I see Thai as a kind of a bodhisattva, who, in that sense, like his form as a human being became so full of the radiance of these spirit beings of bodhisattvas, right? That this is just in that space of the body and in the spaces where he lived and walked, and thus radiant into the world. Think of someone like Saint Francis, who was an expression of compassion also, right? And so much so, right, that this is clearly not like an individual's doing, right? This isn't my life doing what I want to do. This is me walking through the world as a vessel for compassion, right? Or even Siddhartha is seen in that way. The young person who became the Buddha is that lifetime, that during his life is seen as that blossoming fully, perfecting that experience of awakening, really letting it come to full fruition into Buddhahood. Yeah, so I think when we think like that, we can see the bodhisattvas alive with us in the world, a little here, a little there, and sometimes in great and powerful forces, and sometimes not in a person, but in a community, or in an event, or in a place that has become full of that energy. I really love this perspective because it takes this sense of like, I have to wait until I die in order to have some real sense of meaning. It's like, no, this moment, the way that we breathe, the way that we walk, the way that we look at each other, the way we listen to each other, the kind things we say, right? That is the expression of the wholesome path in the world. It's the substance, the actual spirit expression, the expression of the spirit of bodhisattvas. It's a gentle removal of this striving and running towards trying to get somewhere, having to attain something, and instead settling into, let's just reveal what's already here, kind of energy. Right? So we have to go over there to get to that place of awakening. And let's peel back the busyness, the distractions, and reveal what's already there in us. Yeah, this is what I like about this practice. Hmm. I brought the chanting book out so that I might read the invocation at some point, but I think it's enough time. Right? Yeah. So thank you for being together to share in this contemplation of these practices. And I really appreciate you helping to manifest some real presence, to be a vessel for that.